The road to a championship for the Orlando Magic still goes through one player. As all the noise continues, the pressure is on Paolo Banchero today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is March 4th. It will be March 5th, 2026. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the national media gets their grips on the Sunday-Monday conversation. We'll talk about why the conversation is really about the pressure on Paolo Banchero and how he's actually rising to meet it once again after the All-Star break. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. Plus, stay with us. Horace Grant's going to be on the show talking about his new project and building a championship team. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day by being one of our Orlando Magic dailies, our everydayers who listen 5 days a week, who listen first thing in the morning, who listen as part of their regular podcast rotation, who make us their first listen every day. We want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Magic community such a great and growing community. We want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. It's your team every day. Like I said, we're going to have Horace Grant on the show here coming up in just a moment, but we got national media talking about the Magic, and very much like me, I'm very happy like being off in my own corner and not having to think about the national picture and just like saying, I'm just focused on the Magic and, no one else cares about us. I get my little dominion over this little territory. But the national media are talking because yes, there was a thing. Fans were talking about it. I had to address it. I took my own spin on it and saying, well, it's actually this, not that. But whether it's Lou Williams and Chandler Parsons on FanDuel TV's Run It Back, whether it's Brian Windhorst, Tim McMahon, and Tim Bontemps talking about it on the Hoop Collective, the statement that Paolo Banchero made after Sunday's game, saying that the team did not adjust in the second half of their loss to the Detroit Pistons, followed by Jamal Mosley saying the problem was we didn't play hard enough or they played harder than us after practice on Monday. There is some disconnect out in the open. Now, again, I think my take on this, having listened back and reheard everything Paolo said and, Zapruder filming it, saying back and to the left as many times as we can. I do think that, I don't think it was necessarily about the coaching staff not making adjustments. I think that what Paolo was saying as much as anything, I think honestly they're more on the same page than you think. I think more than anything, Paolo was saying we as players did not adjust to what Detroit was doing, and we got caught on our back foot. That was a lot of what was said both Sunday and Monday, is that Detroit just became a lot more aggressive, and that's kind of what Jamal Mosley was saying as well. Now, again, my take on the whole situation was, this is the problem, is that the Magic over the last 3 years, even though they made the playoffs, have been one of the worst teams among Eastern Conference postseason teams against teams with winning records. And that is a problem because, yes, one day the Magic hope to beat these teams and win a championship and be competitive at the highest levels. And so everybody deserves blame. If you're just blaming Jamal Mosley, you're absolving the players of their responsibility to play better. And Paolo Banchero has not had his best season. We'll talk about the ways he's been better in a moment. But you can't blame the coach and say the players are perfect. Just like I agree with this too. You can't blame the players and absolve the coach. Jamal Mosley needs to do better to make things easier for his team. And frankly, Tuesday's game against the Wizards, even though it was a nothing game, even though it was against a tanking team in the Wizards, Tuesday's game showed that kind of an adjustment where they recognized a weakness and said, we're going to dump the ball to Paolo in the post as much as possible and let him work. And then to Paolo's credit, he did not settle for shots. He got to the rim. He was 13 for 14 in the restricted area, got to the line, I think, for 6 or 7 free throws, and dominated that game completely for his 37 points. That was a statement game after everything that had happened Sunday, Monday. And I would assume that, maybe not specifically about what the national media or what the media was saying. I am sure Mosley and Paolo had a talk. There have been rumblings about some disconnect between the two, and there may be just a general this just isn't working. I'm going to do my best, but this just isn't working. There may be that conclusion with Paolo. There's certainly that conclusion among fans, but I don't think Paolo and Mose are on non-speaking terms. I think they talk a lot. It's just whether there's a belief that this can be successful, and that'll be something we talk offseason. Ultimately, though, as I was listening to the Hoop Collective talk about, and Brian Winters and the ESPN crew talk about this seeming disconnect. Look, I'm on the ground. I'm with these players and in that locker room and hear every single thing that they say. I hope you all understand that. Well, I will admit my bias is to believe people are trying to do the right things. I don't sense that Paolo's sabotaging anything. If there is a disconnect between Paolo and Coach Mose, I don't sense that Paolo is pouting and trying to make it not work and trying to make it fail as a statement. I find that to be complete BS. Sorry for that. And when I listen to national media, I'm listening to a group of people that jump in here and there to talk and watch the Magic and aren't watching every game. I will say this. What they said on that podcast, or what they were pointing to without maybe even realize they're pointing to it, is the correct thing to say. It's going to be easy to dump the coach. And we'll talk about that when the season's over. And I hope I've made myself clear about the direction that I do think the Magic are pointing toward. And I'll issue that final statement, that final opinion, that final judgment when the season is over. Again, if you've listened to the show, you probably know where I'm leaning. And I'm a Mose supporter. I love Mose. He's a great guy. I think he's a fantastic coach, but things are pointing in a direction. And I think it's going to be very tough to come back from that direction. It's easy to change the coach. But once that first coach is gone, when it's clear, okay, this coach isn't unlocking the player, you got to go find a coach that's going to unlock the player. But that puts all the pressure on Paolo. And again, I've been critical of Paolo Banchero on the show. I have been. I'm not going to deny that I've been critical of him. And it's less about numbers and it's more about, and I understand injury and I understand look, it's a process. It's not a straight line. You're going to have some bad years, and this may just be a bad year for him for whatever reason. My criticism of him has been based on his leadership and intangibles. I'm not diving into the on-off numbers. We're going to do that in a moment, but I'm not going to go all crazy on that stuff because I know the context. I know how good and how impactful he has been for this team. What I've wanted to see him do is be a better leader and set an example for everyone else. And generally offensively, I think he's been trying to do the right things. He hasn't settled for as many mid-range jumpers. He struggled with his shot this year. But I've been very encouraged by, since the All-Star break, is how he has taken a bigger responsibility defensively. He may not be perfect on defense, but he's guarding Luka Doncic. He's guarding Cade Cunningham. He's guarding Kevin Durant. And being a big part of the scheme to try and contain those players. And look, they did a great job on Luka. They did a solid job on Cade, I thought. And honestly, I think they did a solid job on Durant, even though Durant got 40 in that game. He got hot. He did Durant things. What are you supposed to do? You contested all those shots. You do your best. And yeah, the Magic are running a switch-heavy scheme, so it's not all Paolo, but the base is it starts with Paolo. And so I want to give Paolo his flowers. But the pressure is always on your best player. Your star player plays a huge role in how you do. And so inevitably, well, yes, the coach is going to shoulder a lot of blame. But a second straight season that fails to meet expectations, potentially a third straight season where the Magic lose in the first round. Something that Paolo Banchero said after last year's loss to Boston, they did not want to happen again. Yeah. Whether you think Paolo's the best player or not, he's an all-star level player. He has that responsibility on this team. All responsibility falls on him, or a good chunk of that responsibility falls on him. Whether you like it or not, the pressure is on Paolo Banchero. And now the question is, how does he respond? Because frankly, I'm not interested in the past anymore. Like, we know the kind of player Paolo is. We know the kind of player he can be. We know the expectations that follow, and we know all that stuff. I am not interested in the past. I'm interested in how we look to the future and how things get better. Because like last year after the All-Star break, Paolo Banchero is starting to pick up steam. And we're going to delay our conversation with Horace Grant just a little bit so we can talk about how Paolo is responding to this pressure and what the end of this season means for him and this team moving forward. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. This is the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, or cotton candy. There is something for everyone. So the board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft. Typically when I drink these energy drinks or I go for these kind of protein bars, I like a good vanilla flavor. I like something simple. I am vanilla. I am like the Magic. I am mid. So give me that vanilla-y flavor. Give me that flavor that's just going to be light and airy and sweet. And that's why I go with Confetti Craze. It's a delicious blend of rich and buttery, freshly baked confetti cake, smooth vanilla frosting, and a sprinkle of sweetness in every sip. You get that sweet birthday cake inspired flavor because everybody loves birthday cake. And the notes of vanilla frosting and sugary sprinkles just put the cherry on top. There's no cherry in this one, but it puts the cherry on top. Rich, indulgent sweetness from start to finish. 5 Hour Energy gives you a boost with zero sugar. And 5 Hour Energy has a lot of upcoming flavor innovations planned. They got the sour apple now. I'd love a cookies and cream. I'm always down for some cookies and cream. I've got a sweet tooth like that. So go grab your 5 Hour Energy now. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Again, find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part not always so simple. That's why Game Time is the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. Advantage back where it belongs with the fans. I will be on the road this weekend. I am heading up to Minneapolis and to Milwaukee for the big games this weekend for the Orlando Magic between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Milwaukee Bucks. And typically when I travel, I do like to try and go to games when I can. It's a little tougher when you're covering games, especially on a back-to-back. But the afternoon game gives me the opportunity to explore one of my absolute favorite cities in the country, Minneapolis. And guess who happens to be in town? My Northwestern Wildcats heading to the barn to take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So what did I do? I hopped on the Game Time app. I looked at the tickets available. I said, you know what? Let me wait a little bit, see if the prices come down. About a month later, bought my ticket last week to go see the Wildcats play Minnesota. Paid about $60 to sit 6 rows right behind the Northwestern bench, when just a month ago it was $60 to sit in the upper deck. I cannot recommend Game Time enough to get you tickets for wherever you're going to go to see whatever event, basketball, sports, concerts, whatever. You can find the ticket on Game Time. It's absolutely a great buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic your first listen today, and thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't done so already, go check out our Everydayer Club. On the Everydayer Club, you get access to the ad-free audio feed for this podcast, plus access to our Locked On Discord server. That not only gets you access to the Locked On Magic Discord channel to talk all things Orlando Magic with our growing community, but also the chance to talk NBA in the Locked On NBA Discord server. Check it out today at lockedonmagic.supercast.com. That's lockedonmagic.supercast.com. We will hear from Horace Grant here in just a moment. I'm really bearing the lead on that one because I'm really excited to share this interview that I did with Horace Grant. But let's start here with Paolo Banchero and some numbers to back up where he's at. Paolo Banchero has obviously not had the season he or anyone else imagined. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to say that. And I think Paolo would agree with that. He's averaging only 20. Let me get my numbers right here. He's averaging only 22.1 points per game, career best 8.4 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. He's shooting a career best 45.9% from the floor, only a 49.5% effective field goal percentage, but a career best 56.4% true shooting percentage. Now, I will admit that is a career best. Give him the credit for the career best, but that is 7th worst among players who average at least 30 minutes per game and have a usage rate greater than 25%. But notably, ahead of Cade Cunningham, Pascal Siakam, and Alperen Şengün, all All-Stars this year. So Paolo should be in that mix. The reason Paolo is still so polarizing and the reason why he doesn't maybe get the credit he deserves is because the Magic lose the minutes that he's on the floor. He has never had a positive net rating when the Magic never had a positive net rating when Banchero was on the floor. The closest they got was they broke even in 2024. Last year was at minus 0.8 or at minus 0.6. This year, they are minus 0.8 points per 100 possessions with Paolo on the floor. But like last year, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, injuries have gutted the team. And yeah, Paolo's just generally an inefficient shooter. His playmaking impact is questionable, but it's there. It can be there. It's a lot of the same issues the Magic aren't putting the pieces together. But like last year when Banchero averaged 29 points per game and shot a 58.3% true shooting percentage after the All-Star break, Banchero is starting to pick up steam once again. Since the All-Star break, just 7 games, and the Magic are 4-3 in those games. But since the All-Star break, Banchero is 10th in the league in scoring with 26.9 points per game. He has a 48.5% shooting, 37.5% shooting from 3, and 84.5% from the line. He has a 58.9% true shooting percentage. Better than last year's at 58.1 after the All-Star break, again, just 7 games. Which is better than Nikola Jokic, Jaylen Brown, Cade Cunningham, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Small sample size, but positive signs nonetheless. Here's the important stat. Since the All-Star break, the Magic have a plus 8.9 net rating. Plus 8.9 net rating, a 114.3 offensive rating, which is okay, and a 105.4 defensive rating, which is really good, with Banchero on the floor. With him off the floor, it's at minus 1.8. So the Magic are finally significantly better with Banchero on the floor. Do not say, again, small sample, 7 games. So if that's too small for you, since January 1st, where Banchero's averaging 23.7 points per game and has a 58.1% true shooting percentage, the team has minus 0.8 points per 100 possessions with him on the floor. Those are 26 games. Magic are, I think, 13-13 in those games. Then again, the Magic are minus 4.1 points per 100 possessions with Paolo off the floor. I think we can say, while the Magic may not have the most positive impact this year, I think we can say definitively the Magic are better with Paolo on the floor. Now, this is where the pressure comes in. This is where the pressure matters. It is clear that the Magic are better with Paolo on the floor this year. But it is clear that we need to see the impact that Paolo is having over these last 7 games. That has to become the norm. The reason why no one talks about Cade Cunningham or Jaylen Brown and their inefficient shooting the same way they're talking about Paolo Banchero is because Cade Cunningham has a positive net rating and Jaylen Brown has a positive net rating. Their teams win their minutes. Now, how much of that is the supporting cast? Like Desmond Bane's been playing great, and I'm sure Paolo and Des's numbers are fantastic together, but split them up, and I'm sure it looks a little worse. The Magic definitely need a better supporting cast. Their bench has really struggled this year. And so it's no wonder, and guys have been in our lineup. Franz has been out essentially since December 7th. It's no wonder that these pieces haven't quite fit together. Not perfectly, at least. And so the Magic are better now with Paolo. Like, that's unequivocal. You can't argue that point anymore. Certainly not last 7 games, and frankly, not since January 1st. The question is, why aren't they good enough? Why aren't they even better? And that'll be the question that Paolo has to answer in the offseason. That is a question the Magic will have to answer in the offseason in determining whether the problem is, hey, we need a new voice. We need some new ideas on how to use him and make the most of this player. If the Magic do decide to move on to a new coach this summer, the number one thing they have to do, the first question they have to have for that new coach is, how are you going to maximize Paolo Banchero? Like that, if the new coach or whoever they're interviewing cannot answer that question satisfactorily, they are not the answer for this team. Because the Magic are with Paolo Banchero. They're in the Paolo Banchero business. This is their guy. Signed him a 5-year max extension. He is not going anywhere. But the Magic are absolutely better with Paolo Banchero on the floor. 100 times, 100% better with Paolo Banchero on the floor. And now they just have to find a way to maximize that, to get more out of it. And that's going to be on Paolo as much as it's going to be on coaching and the team to do that. Regardless of the case, this is why these games are so important. This is why this stretch matters. This is why this is important. Because getting to the 6th seed right now, making up this half game, but game and a half that the Magic trailed after the All-Star break, making that up is proof of concept that Paolo can lead this team. Just like last year was proof of concept that he could. We know he can. But the NBA is about constantly reproving yourself. And that is the challenge ahead of the Orlando Magic. I have overpromised, and I hope to overdeliver. We're going to chat with Horace Grant about building a champion and his new project coming up here. Plus, Alex Martin's going into the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. I'll provide some brief thoughts on that. I've gone over my time here. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On is over at TurboTax. It is tax time. But for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you are getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you are done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today. I want to thank you again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We're going to get into it very, very quickly here. I got the opportunity to chat with Horace Grant, Magic legend, Orlando Magic Hall of Famer, since we're talking about that. If he's not, he should be in. Horace Grant is doing this great new project called Legends in Session with Horace Grant. He is doing an interview series with champions across different sports, including some that were on the Orlando Magic, and telling their stories and getting their stories out there. So I got the opportunity to talk with Horace ahead of this, get his opinion on what makes championship teams and where the Orlando Magic need to go next. So here it is, Orlando Magic legend, Orlando Magic Hall of Famer, Horace Grant. And I am joined today by a very, very special guest, beloved by Magic fans, I would hope. I can't imagine why he wouldn't be. The man with the goggles himself, Horace Grant, here on Locked On Magic. He is here to promote a very special series coming up called Legends in Session. And Horace, I feel like the conversation I want to have with you is very much based on what your show is going to be about. So let's start there. What is the Legends in Session? What's your goal with this interview series that you're preparing to start?
Well, Phil, thanks for having me on. But the Legends in Session is all about giving legends their flowers now. On the show, they're inducted to the Hall of Legends. They get a nice little trophy, if you will. It's all about them growing up. I'm asking questions about them growing up, their college years, their professional years, even if it's basketball, baseball, or even acting. So it's just giving people their flowers now. That's what it's truly about.
Yeah, and obviously you have such a rich history in basketball. Part of two championship teams, and certainly one that was pointing in a championship direction here in Orlando for a little bit. For me personally, you just scream just like associated with championships. Like I've always kind of believed that your presence on the 95 team was what helped get them over the hump and helped kind of teach that young team with Shaq and Penny and Nick how to be winners, and to see you still kind of trying to figure out what makes people successful and what makes people champions, I think is very, very on brand for you. Is that kind of where you're going with this, to just not only give people flowers, but like get into the minds of what success is like?
Absolutely. That's a great point, Philip. I've been blessed. I was very blessed to play with, Michael and Scotty, Shaq and Penny and Nick and Dennis Scott and so many others in Orlando. Then going to the Lakers and playing, with Shaq and the late great Kobe Bryant, that resume just, is up here in terms of all the guys that I played with. But to answer your question, it's more or less like connecting with my audience and guys just giving their testimony of their life, things that we haven't heard, but they're giving their testimony about their upbringing and their basketball, baseball careers or tennis careers or whatever.
Yeah, and that's really exciting. It's always good to hear people who are great and who are successful chat about success.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have a special place in Orlando Magic history, one of the first big free agents to come to Orlando. And like I mentioned, I think a really key factor, obviously, like Shaq and Penny and Nick and Dennis, that was a really talented team. They made the playoffs for the first time in 1984. When you came to Orlando in the summer of 1994, what was your impression of the team, and how did you feel like you could help take them to the next level?
Well, being in the previous 7 years in Chicago, helping to win the first 3 championships there, I felt that I could bring some championship inspiration, if you will, to a great young team. Shaq was, I think, his third or fourth year, something like that, and Penny was young. Nick, it was just a young team. I felt, in terms of myself, and Jeff Turner was there at that power forward / center position, that, the combination of us, not just me, but the combination of us as a team could get the Orlando Magic over the hump. Just some championship knowledge that I brought.
Obviously, like the talent was there, but were you guys surprised how quickly things clicked? Because typically when you think of championship teams, like those Bulls teams you were on, it was a journey. It was a fight to get to that first championship. It's multiple years of, for lack of a better way to phrase it, this kind of failure, like learning and growing.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at how quickly success came for that team?
No, not at all. And I say that in the respect of the talent was there, but the mindset had to develop quickly. It didn't have to develop quickly, but it did. I just, think, a guy like Brian Hill, who get overlooked as a coach because the team was so talented, But, you can have all the talent in the world. If you don't have that leadership, you're not going anywhere. But fortunately for us, we had that talented Shaq, Penny, Nick, myself, Dennis Scott, Brian Shaw, and so many others. Yeah.
There's a lot of underrated veterans on that team between Brian Shaw. I think Tree Rollins was coming off the bench. He played with the Hawks for a long time. Greg Kite had played with the Celtics during those championship years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like championship level experience helping that young core kind of figure it out. We hear a lot, I think Charles Barkley says this a lot on Inside the NBA, just how important veterans are to helping young teams and young players kind of find their way. Do you feel like that's something that's maybe lost in the modern game? This emphasis on having guys who have been there that can show the way and impart that wisdom, in the locker room in ways that maybe that the public doesn't always see.
I think veteran leadership is so important. It was important to me, my rookie year, in terms of Charles Oakley taking me under his wing. And I mentored so many rookies, throughout my 17-year career. I think it's a lost art in terms of veteran leadership in a lot of teams, not all teams, but a lot of teams who have the talent, but they lack the veteran leadership to tell them, work a little harder in practice. Don't worry about scoring. Your role is rebounding. Play some defense. So I think that's missing with a lot of teams, but not all.
But you were on two like dynastic teams. I know you weren't there for all the years with the Lakers, but you were on two like dynasty level teams. And again, the Magic, certainly were a championship level team in the years that you were in Orlando. What is the common thread between teams that are playing at that supreme level?
Phil, it's a combination of things. First, we would have to be leadership in terms of the front office, bringing the right character guys together, bringing the right core. And you got to have talent. In Orlando, we had the talent. Bringing myself and Brian Shaw there, I think kind of solidified where the Magic in the front office wanted to go.
Yeah, certainly. I think that was a big piece of the puzzle. When you look at the league now, I don't know how much you watch the league now. Which team stands out to you as like a team that is on the cusp of that contending class, and being that next big team?
Man, you have to look at the San Antonio Spurs, and I mean, I'm a huge NBA fan now. But the San Antonio Spurs really remind me of that young Orlando Magic team that I was very fortunate to be a part of. In terms of, you have the Wemby, just such a dominant player in terms of 7'5", 7'6", shoot three, bring the ball up the court, block shot, rim protector, and you got Castle and you got Harper. You got so many other parts of that young basketball team. I can see that team, if not this year, but next year in the finals.
Yeah, they're definitely one of the special teams, and obviously Wembanyama is such a unique player. I didn't expect you to say them because I'm sure it hurts you to see the Detroit Pistons at the top of the Eastern Conference. It hurts everyone to see them there, I think. But certainly they're a team on the cusp as well. I wanted to get your thoughts about this Orlando Magic team, because obviously Orlando has two really special and unique players in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, but injuries have kind of derailed them the last 2 years. They bring in Desmond Bane. They have these huge expectations. When you watch this Magic team, if you've been able to watch this Magic team, what do you feel is the missing piece or the next step for this team to get to that contending class?
Well, they have the pieces, and Paulo and Wagner and, Wendell Carter Jr., Suggs. I mean, Baines, it was a great pickup. They have the talent. I think more or less they have to start trusting each other in terms of let Paulo do his thing. Let Bane, do his thing. But the other guys going to have to play their roles in terms of rebounding and trusting each other on defense. I see, in terms of the Magic playing defense, it's, they're going to have to trust each other. I just put it that way. They have the pieces. They have the pieces. But I think it's all about trust.
Is that, trust is such a tenuous thing. Like, it feels like you rebuild it every year. It's not something that's just kind of a given. Like, I think a lot of this Magic roster has been together for so long. You assume that trust is there, but you have to rework it in training camp every year. It is for a lot of talented teams, is that trust and maybe even that belief the big difference maker between a team that is, meeting their expectations and competing for a championship, or kind of still figuring themselves out and finding their way in the league?
Well, I think, a lot of people can believe, but if you don't execute that trust out there on the floor and in practice, you're not going to succeed. You can be the most talented team in the NBA. If you don't have that trust with your teammates, that, if you go for that steal, I know, Wendell Carter got my back. And if Wendell Carter Jr. Goes for a steal, I know that somebody back there got my back. So I think the combination of that, if they can bring that into fruition, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah. And again, like, I think it's, I think something else too is, I do think people forget, we live in a society where everything's instantaneous. And and I'd always say, like, when you get good in this league, you get good really quick. Just like when you get bad, you go bad real quick. Things happen so fast in the NBA, it feels like. I do think people forget that it's a journey. Like, it's like winning a like the 95 Magic were kind of spoiled this young fan base a little bit, because it happened so quickly to get a player like Shaq and to be in the finals, 6 years into the franchise's history. It's usually a multi-year journey. Obviously it was a different era back in the late 80s and early 90s when you won your first championship, but how much is that level of patience necessary, or how much is that level of determination necessary to get over that hump and win?
I think the fans in Orlando and Orlando fans around the world have to be a little patient. You had injuries, you had new players coming in, a new coaching system was acclimated. So many things come into play. Like I said earlier, Philip, that the talent is there. I see it in Orlando. I think they just have to have some type of camaraderie with each other. And I just ask for the fans there, because I'm a fan, just be a little patient with these young men.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like I say this all the time, Paolo's 23, like Franz is 24. They are very, very young. It's crazy to think how young they still are, even though they've been in the league for coming on 4 or 5 years now. Horace, I want to get you out on this. What, we talked a little about Legends in Session and what to expect. The first season is on its way. Who can fans expect to hear from, and what insights can they expect to hear from you and your interview subjects?
Well, we're looking to drop the whole series in June.
Okay.
But, I've already had Charles Oakley. My brother Harvey is very interesting. He's my twin. Vernon Maxwell, Bill Cartwright, even Phil Jackson came on my show. So,
okay.
And now I'm going to have Robert Horry and just so many other guys. Just, giving my audience something they want to hear about their lives.
It sounds like an incredible show. I love personally, like I grew up in the 90s. I love hearing the stories from all those guys and reminiscing about those games. It's been nice having the NBC nostalgia going on, but I really love hearing the stories directly from the players who live them. And I can't think of a better guy to bring that out than you, Horace. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I appreciate you sharing your insight, and looking forward to seeing the show drop in June.
Thank you very much for having me, Philip. Take care. Thank you.
I want to thank Horace once again for taking the time to chat with me a little bit ahead of his new project. Again, that project is Legends in Session with Horace Grant. Like you said, it's going to debut over the summer in June. Really looking forward to that. I personally love hearing the stories from the 90s legends, from the players of Horace's era. And Horace obviously played a huge role in NBA history from the late 80s into the early 2000s. He was on the first Shaquille O'Neal championship team. Horace, just a class guy. Love the opportunity to talk with him. I got my little Horace Grant rubber ducky in my background. If you can see that far, it's next to the Jaws rubber ducky that I have. So always a pinch me moment when I get to chat with anyone from the 1995 team that I grew up watching and love so dearly. But thank you to Horace once again for jumping on. This show's already gone too long. I do want to close with a quick news item. The Orlando Magic did announce on Wednesday that they're going to be inducting Alex Martins into the Team Hall of Fame. This to me, as a Magic historian, is it's self-congratulatory. There's no doubt about that. But I do think that it is warranted. I know fans do not have the best relationship with Alex Martins. He was essentially the face of the franchise during their worst period as an executive. He was largely seen as meddling too much into basketball operations during that time. He was seen as kind of the interloper that took over the chaos during the Dwightmare. He was a front-facing public figure during a really bad time in Orlando Magic history, and I would agree that he made a lot of mistakes during that tenure that prolonged that rebuild era and did not help the team get there. I would also argue that he hired Jeff Weltman, who has done a tremendous job. Who has done a tremendous job rebuilding this team. Yes, there are issues with Jeff Weltman that we can debate later. But Alex Martins is a really big figure in Magic history. He was with the team from the very beginning. He was a public relations figure in the very early stages of the organization. He's essentially been with Magic, except for I think like a 5-year period, since the very beginning of the franchise. He was instrumental in getting the Kia Center built, which frankly, if the Kia Center does not get built, there are no Orlando Magic. They probably do eventually move out of Orlando. I mean, that was it was a contentious issue to get that arena built. And frankly, like Alex Martins has been quietly such a huge impactor in Central Florida and in Orlando in the sports world. They bundled the Kia Center with building the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center, which has been a huge boost for the city, as well as the renovations of Camping World Stadium, which are still ongoing. They're kind of in another phase of that, but a huge boost to the city to help it grow up and be this events city. Again, this is all outside of the Magic, but he's involved in so many different things throughout the city. He's involved with UCF. He was on the Pulse board in the aftermath of Pulse. He has had his hands and has been a true like leader and figure in Central Florida for the good. For whatever bad you want to say that he did during that tenure, when again he was the forward facing figure during that rebuild era, for whatever bad you want to say happened then. Alex Martin's tenure as president of the Orlando Magic, CEO of the Orlando Magic, whatever it was called, has been overwhelmingly positive under the weight of it. And look, this is a little self-congratulating. Like Alex Martins retired, took a step back. He didn't really retire. We spoke to him at the Orlando Magic Wine Festival and auction on Saturday. I asked him directly, like, what's then the step back like? And he's like, I haven't really, I've honestly been working a lot more than I thought I would be. He is part of the group that is trying to bring the All-Star game to Orlando in 2030. He really said 2028 through 2030. Obviously, we're waiting on Westcourt to begin, and I think that's a big piece of the puzzle to the Orlando Magic getting it, or to Orlando, not just the Magic, but to Orlando getting an All-Star game. Yes, it is self-congratulatory. Yes, it is the Magic, promoting and giving recognition to someone who worked mostly behind the scenes that fans do not see. And especially a year after they did Dwight Howard and all the hoopla and not controversy, but for all the hoopla that would bring to honoring and recognizing one of your all-time great players, this is a little bit of a come down, and a little bit of like, oh, he's here, it's easy, it's no big deal. Regardless, Alex Martin deserves to be in the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. Just like I would say Jeff Turner deserves to be in the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame for all of his contributions to the team, not just as a player, but as a personality and as a figure. Alex Martin's contributed a lot to this team. I always say the Hall of Fame is for people that it would be impossible to tell the story of whatever you're trying to honor without that person. You cannot tell the story of the Orlando Magic, for better or for worse. Again, like I said, mostly for better. You cannot tell that story without Alex Martin. So this honor is not for the fans. And maybe that is a reason not to put him in the Hall of Fame, because the Hall of Fame is a thing that sits out there for the fans to view and for that to be part of. But Alex Martin's has undoubtedly done enough to get that honor if that's what we're going to give him. Again, we're not retiring his jersey. We're not like hanging a banner for him. We're creating a little pedestal and putting a little thing, and they actually have it set up much nicer now in the Kia Center. The Hall of Fame area is much better now than it used to be. I'll give the Magic kudos for that. But he absolutely deserves it, in my opinion. And I would say just congratulations to him. I think he did a lot more than fans want to recognize, although again, his most public facing stuff was not so good. It's been a long episode. I apologize for going a little longer, but had to get all this good stuff in. Lots of good, juicy stuff. Got to get it in now, especially since we'll be deep in the playoff moving forward. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of the places you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can check us out as well on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, your Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And be sure to check out our Everydayer Club to get access to our ad-free audio feed, plus access to the Locked On Magic Discord, as well as the Locked On NBA Discord to chat with Magic and NBA fans across the league. You can find more information on that at lockedonmagic.supercast.com. As always, thank you for your support. For those of you on video, we're going to send you the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back again tomorrow to recap the Magic's game against the Dallas Mavericks. Until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.